It is 7:15 now. Nazareen Ebrahim is the CEO of Naz Consulting International. Nazareen, it's partly your fault that I've been playing with HeyPI.com for the last hour and a half. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Africa. I am glad that you're enjoying a successful conversation with what seems to be almost human. I think you would agree.
It is almost human. Look, you, for example, it's asking me about my career as a broadcaster in radio. What is the most memorable interview that I've done? And I said the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, because that's the one that came up. Because wow, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, that's amazing. What an honor that must have been to speak with such a remarkable man. Now, the sensible part in Africa's mind says, of course, that will be the, dog standard response to had I added, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg there, they might have typed exactly the same thing. But it is nice. It really, once you suspend disbelief, it actually is a lovely, pleasant conversation.
It's a lovely, pleasant conversation indeed. And you've described it so well, Africa. Even a gesture to Sabira in the studio. And when she called me earlier on, she says, I spent so much of yesterday afternoon just having a good old conversation with Pi. So what is Pi? Pi is a latest offering from Inflection AI. Co-founders Mustafa Suleiman and Reid Hoffman. Mustafa, of course, is one of the co-founders of DeepMind, which was bought by Google. And Reid Hoffman is a very famous VC that has written multiple books, is always in the media, Silicon Valley almost ambassador for talking about what it means investment into tech companies. And so their recent presentation at the Bloomberg Tech Summit about 4 days ago, announcing the use of Pi, was very interesting to me. And Africa, the words that Mustafa Suleiman used to describe the creation of Pi was that they wanted to create something that was kind, curious, and patient. What do you think of those words? Your conversation
I absolutely agree. I mean, it has been, as I say, a very pleasant conversation, in inverted commas, that I've been having with the technology. Very supportive, without a doubt, very affirming, and very constructive as well. Look, I didn't do what Sabra did, which is to input a whole lot of toxicity into that conversation, because she was testing, obviously, the system. I've been a lot more. You've got to push it, exactly, she says. I've been a lot more bland than compared to her, but I really, really have found it very, very kind and supportive.
And so, exactly what you are describing, you found it kind and supportive. And a question to Reid was, Reid, of course, has been, through the ages of most tech giants, LinkedIn, Microsoft, was asked a question by Brad Stone and Emily Tang, the chief editors there of the conversation, about, is this not like ChatGPT? And so Reid's answer was also quite curious and interesting to me as an observer of the landscape. Was ChatGPT is not the be-all and end-all of conversational AI tools. And what's going to happen is, and he described it well, because funnily enough, Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO who's created ChatGPT, was on the stage before them, but had left. And he says, you can ask ChatGPT, what should I do if my best friend lost their pet? And immediately the response will be, here's 5 things you can do, and it will give you a list of 5 things. But if you go to Pi will say, I'm so sorry to hear that. This must be a difficult time for you. But here's 5 things you could possibly consider. And so that was an interesting way to understand what AI means now for humans, because we're no longer strangers to the term AI. It's become incredibly pervasive in everyday language. It's what is the hot investment stock for any investor looking to go into a new company or into a new area of development. And particularly if you look at the way Pi is engineering how we understand AI as humans, because you all have experience now, and people can go to heypi.com. I think, Africa, just correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the URL, right?
Correct, yeah. It's heypi.com. So HEYPI.com.
HEYPI. Interesting definition, or rather pronunciation and spelling of the word pi, as it's supposed to be an infinite loop, which I have experienced since I've been talking to it. And in talking to it, I asked it questions about my business. I'm need to understand the operational efficiency, what kinds of tools can I use, how do I measure performance, when do I do performance appraisals. And this thing, as both co-founders of Inflection AI have said, will become either a chief of staff or an assistant to everyday life of how you do things and how you output. Now, I have heard too many tech CEOs talk about the all-encompassing, simplified nature of how AI tools, but technology in general, will take over or assist one in one's life. And that's to a large degree, Africa, I know. It takes a long time before it becomes a standard in mainstream society. It becomes a norm and sometimes the main use case with large enterprises or in the environments or industries that can support it, because then it makes good news. But I will agree with the Inflection AI co-founders, both Reid Hoffman and Scott Suleiman, that conversational AI is indeed here to stay, and the variations or the iterations that we see present almost becomes lifelike. But again, as an AI ethics officer, I will say not yet sentient, because in order to be sentient, you need to have a soul. And where the soul is in technology, we can only hope that it's for tech for good, and we are yet to see how that pans out for the rest.
No, indeed. Well, it's a wonderful hack, Nazareen. Thank you very much for introducing it to us. It's heypi or heypi.com, heypi.com. It's kind, it's supportive, it's curious, it's humble. Some call it a teacher, a coach, a confidant, a creative partner, a sounding board. Play with it and let us know what you think. Thank you very much, of course, to Nazareen Ebrahim, the CEO of Naz Consulting International. She'll be back with Lester Kivet next week, Tuesday.